Hello YouTube, this is You Can Do It Dave. In this next video we are going to be assembling all the pieces for the 26-inch round window for the Hobbit Home. Okay, now you've made your outer face frame, you've made your pivot frame, you've made your inner frame, and you've got your window sash, and you've also got the wall, let's call it the wall pass-through. Okay. Now, I have yet to make the inside face frame because, to be honest, I kind of messed it up. When I made this frame, when I glued this frame together here, I was using the same measurement for all the other frames. But that is incorrect because all these other frames fit inside this one. I need to go 6 or 8 inches larger to have a nice covering on the inside of the wall. Okay, so I'm going to assemble this, get it all together, and we'll see how it looks, and then we'll make the inside frame. So let's begin. So the idea here is to have the outside window frame as clean and smooth as possible. Okay, so if we turn this over, it will be nice. It will be nice and flat, no nail holes, no imperfections, or as few as possible. Okay. To achieve this and still mount everything together, what I've already done is the pivot frame. I've glued it. I've taken apart the pivot frame. Okay. Make sure you have lots of reference marks as to where the pivots are, and top and bottom, and inside and outside. But I took it all apart and I put on a good layer of glue, and then glued and screwed the outer side of the pivot frame to the inside of the outer frame. Okay. Then after gluing and screwing that down, making sure it was nice and tight, I took the inside of the pivot frame and I glued and screwed it to the outside of the pivot frame. Okay, so you have one complete unit there now. Okay, so now we will continue on. I'll get this sanded and we'll continue on. So usually I have this flashlight shining this way, but the camera clamp that's holding the camera is the clamp I use to hold the flashlight. It's a flexible gooseneck holder, but as you can see, you can really see what needs to be sanded, and but you need a nice bright light shining on there to see what all the scratches. I've taken apart the window sash, and I've given both halves a nice sanding and a coat of urethane. Okay, so that's on its way. Okay, and I've glued together the 3 pieces, the face frame and the pivot frame, so it's all one unit now. Well, what I am using for the pivoting hardware is just steel rod, about, I don't know, 2 inches long, and 3 washers for each side. Okay, and the washers will go in between the pivot frame and the window sash and hold it centered. Last thing you want is for it to be off center, because you'll be able to see it from the road and it will look terrible. Okay. So we'll put this together and we'll see how it works. So with the window sash being mounted to the pivot frame and the pivot frame being mounted to the faceplate, I'm starting to think about the fact that if the window gets broken, how are you going to fix it? Okay, you can glue and screw this all completely together and have one solid unit, but how are you going to fix the window? Okay, so I've come up with an idea that I'm going to be using these nice brass screws to put together the window sash. 2 brass screws in each eighth. Okay, so it'll kind of be nice and pretty. Again, you'll only see it from the inside. In between each half of the window sash will be a small piece of styrofoam gasket, like the thinnest stuff I can find. And the window sash will only be screwed together. Okay, they'll have each half of the window sash will have 4 layers of varathane, outdoor varathane, screwed together with gasket material in between. Okay, the inside face frame that is being attached to the window well will have 2 pins at the top, 2 guide pins. Okay, and the idea being that you have this piece is mounted to the window well and slid into the house. Okay, and this piece you'll come along and just mount your window on the steel pins, just like that. Okay. Still working on it, but when everything's said and done, you'll have your inside frame that holds the window, and you'll have the outside frame for the rain. Kind of like that. Gotta love it when the batteries die on your camera, so I had to switch to my cell phone camera. Okay, so what I've done is on the other side of this glass, I've actually taken this foam and I've crammed it into this groove. Okay, so it's kind of in an L shape, and then I put the glass into that L shape and it fit beautifully. Okay, the problem is though that I don't have enough room for foam on each side of the glass. So what I've ended up doing is I've taken this foam and I've used it as my frame seal, okay, which then gives me enough room to have a layer against the glass. So now I have a cushion layer against both sides of the glass, and I've got a cushion layer between each piece of wood. So I should be able to just set this on here, squish it together, and there is your window unit. Now I'm going to have to see how much it compresses when I screw it together, and hopefully it will not affect my pivot points, but we will see. So now that I have it together with the foam seal, I'm going to try and compress it and see what happens. As I said in my first video, you cannot compress glass. It will crack. Okay, so we'll give it a try. I'm compressing the foam, I'm not compressing the glass, but we will see. So we lined up all my marks. Make sure the pivot points line up. Make sure all the holes line up. Now I picked up these brass screws just for this reason. Okay. And you're just going to work your way around the window. So there is the glass unit installed with the weather stripping all the way around. Nice sealed unit. Okay, as you can see, I had a little boo-boo and I cracked the glass here. Well, the good news is that even with under compression with the weather stripping, that crack has not gotten any worse. Okay, if I had bent that glass or compressed it in any way, it would have continued to crack. So that's a good sign. So the next step would be to use this caulking cord, okay, and it just presses into place. Okay, so you can just take 2, 3, 4 strips, whatever you need, and just compress it into place. So I'm going to try splitting it in half. And just pressing it into place, sealing it against the window and the wood all the way around. So now here is one side of the window with all the caulking in place, okay, and I just smooth it out, level it out. The good thing about splitting this in half is I know that this will do the other half of the window. So now we just continue on and caulk the other side of the window. Okay, so now with the other side of the window all caulked up and sealed, there is your finished window unit. Okay. Now, I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but that crack did get a little bit bigger as I was pressing this caulking into place. Okay, but it's still a good window to test on. Don't want to go out and buy a brand new window when I'm still putting this thing together. Maybe once it's proven itself, then I'll pick up a new window. So yeah, there is your finished window sash. The foam is a little bit compressed out at the side, but you can always cut that off, okay, if you need to. So now we'll have to see how it mounts in the pivot frame, and we'll go from there. So after installing the pivot points, you can stand it up and see how it works. Okay. Not bad. Not bad at all. So now it's time to install it on the window pass-through. After doing quite a bit of sanding, okay, the window pass-through has gotten one coat of urethane, and I have glued and screwed the interior window drip edge to the window well. Okay, the idea being that I'll have steel pins at the top of this frame, and this one will be hung on the steel frame, or hung on the steel peg, and then screwed in from the inside. So now, after some trial and error of fitting the two halves together, this is what I've come up with. Now, keeping in mind that this stained glass will be on the inside with another piece of glass on top. That's what it will look like on the inside. And from the other side, that's what it will look like from the outside. So now I still have to put a sheet of glass over the top of this on the inside to hold the stained glass in. Right now it's just sitting there, but that is the finished window. In order to be able to hold the stained glass into place, I had to order another piece of glass. The original window pane was 26 inches. The window that I ordered is slightly smaller at 25 and a half. And it finally came in. And there is my 25 and a half inch piece of regular float glass, just regular window glass. So one of the things you still want to keep in mind is you do not want to compress glass. Okay, you compress it, you will crack it. So now one of the things I am going to be doing is I have these little, what are they, hanging brackets for pictures. These are what's going to hold in the glass. I'm going to have 8 of them spaced around, and it will be screwed into the window sash. So this is only there to hold the stained glass in. Okay. Over time, if you do not brace stained glass, it will sag and fold in half, and you don't want to do that. This stain, once I put this glass in there to support that stained glass, it'll be perfect for years. Okay, it'll be well supported, no problem. So what I'm going to be doing also is taking this same thin foam and cutting little slices in regular intervals all the way around the window, so this glass will not actually be sitting on any sharp points. Okay, it will be resting on this foam that's compressed, but it won't be sitting on any sharp points that could over time crack the glass. Okay, so you don't want any sharp points, you don't want to compress it. Okay, you can see here the little foam pads I put on. Okay, so we'll try and lay it down flat. Now with this stained glass panel, you have to be very careful, because since you've got the one big join down the center, it will fold in half if you let it. So you have to be very careful. And also, with the seam down the center, you have to make sure that you get it lined up right the first time. With the window frame. So, I'm going to say right about there. Because it's a finger there and a finger there. Okay, so now I've got foam pads on the other sides, or the far side. Now we just have to center it in place. Okay. So I'm basically cutting little pieces of foam, taking the adhesive backing off, and putting them on each outer seam, or outer join. And oddly enough, it's just the same width as the glass. So now we can put the cover glass in. Just like that. Okay, so that should hold it in there rather nicely. It's well cushioned, it's not going to go anywhere. Okay. So now with these hanger brackets, I was going to install them the same place where I put the foam pads. The problem is that the foam, oddly enough, the glass seams where the foam is line up with the wooden seams almost perfectly. Okay, and I don't want to put screws in a weak spot in the frame, and the weak spot is always at the joint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these little holders. I'm going to stagger them kind of like that. Okay. Now it might seem like it's not really catching the stained glass because I'm not trying to catch the stained glass. I'm trying to catch the cover glass, which is back here. So now again, you do not want to compress glass. So what I've done is I'm taking these picture frame holders and I'm putting a little pad of the same foam against the window. Okay, so when you lay it in there, I'll have the round portion. Only the round portion is going to be holding the glass. Okay, all this will be against the wood. So just like that, and then screw it into place. Okay. So I'm in the process of installing this support glass for the stained glass window on the inside of the original glass pane. Okay. Now keeping in mind that you cannot compress glass. Okay. What I've done is using the same gasket material that I used to seal the window sash. I cut little strips off and I put one strip every 1/8, which kind of worked out pretty good because that's where the stained glass seams are. Okay, so I also put a little gasket in the center to help support the center of the window. Well, then I installed the stained glass against the window pane, and then I used more gasket, as you can see here, every 1/8 with two pieces in the center. And by using window or picture mounting hardware, I was able to install those every 1/8. Again, with little pieces of this gasket in between the steel and the window, so at no time is the glass on a sharp point or being compressed. Okay, those are the two really bad things. You do not want to put it on a sharp point like a soldering joint, and you do not want to compress it. Okay, so now I've installed the window hardware. Let's see here. I've installed the window hardware up top. And I've put in the compressive foam. Now, one thing I did not know was that there is minimum compression, medium compression, and maximum compression. Okay, well, this is a maximum compression foam, which means like a medium compression has very little compression to it, so it's just a hard piece of rubber, while the maximum, let's see here, well, the maximum foam has quite a bit of compression. It's really squishy. Okay, so I don't want to push this thing off the table. I just got it done. Latch to latch, and there you go. So here is the finished window frame. I will go around and I will open it. Okay. There it is, completely open. As you can see, I've installed the high compression foam all the way around. I've doubled it up on the pins, so there is a continuous seam of foam all the way around that window. It is completely air sealed. Okay, you can see the sill gasket, or the foam gasket in between the window sash. Okay, the putty is sealing the window. Okay, it is a completely sealed unit. Let me close it up here. Now, one of the things I am concerned about is rain leakage or water leakage. Now, the rain is going to come off the top and it's going to run down the window and it's going to run off the putty. I doubt if it's going to get in there, but considering that the window sash and the pivot points and all that is 4 separate layers of wood, there is a possibility in a severe wind-driven event that some of that moisture might get down in between that wood. Okay, but as it stands right now, the water should just run right off. I'm still considering options of sealing those gaps. Maybe put a bead of gasket material just underneath this lip so the water can't get in there. But this is the finished window. Stained glass is installed. Cover glass is installed. So this is You Can Do It, Dave, and I hope you enjoyed watching this little adventure of mine. I learned a lot, and hopefully you learned something too.